Hey guys, Braylon here, and welcome to the next and final episode of Deck the Decades this year, where we are going over the 2010s. So the 2010s was mine and a lot of others' generations that watched this channel. Because the 2010s, it really was the decade where the internet really got its start. Like, it was a little bit in the 2000s, YouTube was getting on its feet, but the 2010s, from the entire decade, we had the internet. So, like, a lot of YouTubers got their start in the 2010s, even some social medias, like Vine, before that died. But then we had TikTok, which is one of the biggest social medias, for better or worse. And we just had a lot of culture in the 2010s, like, there was like internet culture was through the roof, memes were starting to get big again. We had stuff that blew it up, like Gangnam Style and all that. We had the Ice Bucket Challenge. And we had stuff like natural disasters like Hurricane Sandy, Hurricane Harvey, which I actually went through, believe it or not. Then we had Hurricane Maria, wildfires, floodings, Flint water crisis, which I also experienced. Yeah, the 2010s, like, when it came to natural disasters, there was a lot of stuff that happened. But moving away from that, another big thing that happened in the 2010s was the rise of streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, and eventually stuff like Disney Plus and all that, which came at the end of the decade. So Netflix was already a thing in the 2000s, but I think already most people know this. It was actually like a thing that you would mail in to get DVDs to rent and all that. But, the 2010s, they got really big because that's when a lot of Netflix originals started coming out and all that, which there was some really good ones on Netflix, and then those ones that should be illegal, but, thankfully they're not on there anymore, so good job, Netflix. But in 2018, Netflix came out with an original Christmas movie called The Christmas Chronicles, which is the movie we're going to be talking about this week. Christmas Chronicles is a movie about two kids, one girl and one guy, that recently their father passed away in a house fire trying to save their family. And, with that, they go through old videos, reliving memories and all that, and they notice on Christmas Eve, they notice a red hand coming near the tree, and they believe it's Santa Claus. So on Christmas Eve of 2018, they try to catch Santa and all of that to see if he's real, and they end up catching Santa and getting on his sleigh. But then, when they're on the sleigh, they accidentally drop his sack, and he's already in Chicago, because the movie takes place in Massachusetts, and now they're in Chicago. The reason why they're in a far thing like that is because they say Santa's sleigh can go anywhere in like 30 seconds. It's a Christmas movie, but now they're all stuck in Chicago and they don't know where Santa's sack is, so they gotta like team up with Santa to get the sack before it's too late to deliver all the presents. So it's a pretty simple setup, you have the two kids who wanted to catch Santa, and then now they're stuck with him and they gotta grab the sack before Christmas is over. So it's a simple setup, and as a movie, for starters, I want to say Kurt Russell as Santa Claus, he might be one of my personal favorite Santa Clauses in any movie. Just entertainment-wise, he's really cool. I love his acting. Like, he is a really cool Santa. He's even kind of funny, too, how he says ho 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 is a myth. It's kind of cute and all that. And I think me and Andrew also brought this up, but he kind of also gives off some, like, I would say, like, obviously Tim Allen is the best Santa Claus, I think, in movie history, but he kind of gives off kind of like how Tim Allen was in the second Santa Claus movie with, like, the Secret Santa and all that in the second one. Because in this movie, like, he pulls out, like, childhood toys of, like, the officers and all that, which is kind of like what Tim Allen did in the second Santa Claus movie, where he gave, like, Christmas gifts, like, childhood gifts to, like, the people working at the school. So that stuff I kind of got in common with, but I think that's where the stuff in common ends. But no, basically, Santa Claus, I think Kurt Russell does a fantastic job. I mean, he's a good actor already. So to see him as Santa in this movie is actually really cool. He's not my favorite version of Santa, but he's definitely like top 5. He's up there. However, now though, even though I really like Santa Claus in this movie, the kids, well, I can't really say I really like them all that much. Like, I think, you know, the stuff about, like, their father passing away, like, in a house fire to try to save a family's house on fire, like, that was, you know, really heartwarming and subtle, like, how they were crying and hugging it out and all that. But besides that, I'm not gonna lie, the kids are kind of annoying. Because the whole movie, they're just, like, arguing and all that. And honestly, besides, like, the arc of them, like, making up and all that, there's not really much to them. I feel like Santa Claus is like the way more interesting character in this movie. So the kids are really just kind of there in the movie. So with that, the kids definitely kind of just on I don't think they're really that great. But Santa Claus in this movie definitely steals the show for me. But that's like my in-depth thoughts right now. Let's pass it on to Andrew real quick so he can give his thoughts, and I'll come back right with you guys.
Thank you, Braylon. And overall, I enjoyed the Christmas Chronicles. It was a fun movie. I can't say it was truly an exceptional Christmas movie, but I had a decent enough time. Like Santa, he was a pretty cool Santa. Personally, I'm the type of guy that prefers a more traditional Santa, but I can appreciate a more cooler, slightly edgier type of Santa. Santa that doesn't go ho ho ho. I can respect that as like a difference in flavor, but as for other stuff like the kids, I know Braylon says he's like they're kind of annoying. I didn't think they were necessarily annoying personally. I'm more like they're kind of just kind of stock standard, to be honest. Like, I don't know, it's a sort of typical sibling rivalry that as the movie goes on that they get over and then become like best friends or whatever. You've seen it before plenty of other times, and like it's a decent enough formula, but it's not like knocking my socks off or something or whatever. And so it's like, okay, the characters are decent enough. I appreciate this movie's like take on the Santa mythology, I guess you could say. How his sleigh works, how like apparently Christmas spirit is like what's keeping the world from killing itself, I guess. I will say those elves, what are they? Like, okay, sure. But I appreciate the liberties it took to create its own version of like the Christmas mythology. So that was neat. And overall, the movie, it had some funny enough moments. Just overall though, it's just an alright movie. I can see why it was probably big enough during its time, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's like kids growing up with this movie as like one of their first Christmas movies, and like. Yeah, I think you can't really go. I don't think it's necessarily go wrong by picking this one as one of the kids first. I think it's a good movie to start off with for some people. It's just, personally, as someone who has seen stories like this plenty enough times, it's just, I don't know. It's good to see it once, and I might say it again here and there, but overall, it's fun. But that's about it. I'll give in this movie an 7.5. Overall, decent enough movie, but not the best. But since this is the final episode, it's time to give my rankings of all the decades and their movies. Let's get right into it. Now, at last place, I gotta probably put Scrooged, I guess. Like, not a bad movie, some fun comedy, but as someone who isn't too deeply into comedies, and as someone who has seen so many different renditions of A Christmas Carol, Scrooge is just, it doesn't do enough for me to say like it's like up there, So right now it's probably gonna be last place. Second to last, I gotta probably give it a Christmas Chronicles. I already gone over it. It's like, again, kind of like Scrooge. It's kind of tells a story I felt like I've seen before. It's a newer movie, so it's a bit more flashier. It has a bit of more of a sort of a heartwarming family drama to it that I enjoy well enough. But overall, decent enough. But number 4, probably gotta give it to A Pocketful. I think it's a pretty fun movie. It's definitely from an era long since detached from my own, So, but as that in that way, it kind of does act as like a almost like a time capsule of like cinema long before. Another thing I appreciate about it is that it's just a funny movie. I enjoy a lot of the jokes, honestly. You know, I also think it's cool and how unique it is. Not there's not really in any movie kind of like this. At most, it's kind of vaguely like Cinderella, but that's about it. Like overall, it's unique. It's funny. It's overall enjoyable. But despite that, I still want to say it's the highest because it's not necessarily what I'm looking for a Christmas movie, and it's also maybe a little too long. It's definitely a movie I have to like get myself in the mood for if I want to sit down and watch it. But I could probably have it in the background fine enough. So overall, decent movie. Like it. Probably one of Braille. But above that one is probably The Year Without Santa Claus. Just classic Rankin Bass stop motion. You know the deal. Yeah, it's just nice. It really does represent a lot of the Christmas spirit, the charming animation, the charming songs, the fun story of Santa. It's just enjoyable. It's exactly what I'm looking forward towards to the holidays. So overall, I'm giving that one to third place. Second place, Jingle All the Way. Just a good comedy. That's about it. Good comedy, like pretty decent, like father son sort of like drama. It doesn't like overshadow the movie or anything. It's still primarily comedy, but it allows enough drama to engage you with the characters. And overall, it's just good. It's solid. It's more unique story, of like something like a parent trying to get their toy for their kid. It's good. Well, I don't know what else to say about it. Like Arnold, he's a funny guy and a cool guy. But now we're back to number one. And number one, that you probably already know by now, is Tokyo Godfathers. Already said in my review. Great animation, great characters and story, great comedy. It's just all that I would want for in a Christmas story, honestly. It's just good. Honestly, probably might even be in my new top 10 Christmas movies. It's definitely at least in the top 20. So, overall, looking at all the movies we got here, pretty solid batch. Not I wouldn't say all of them are probably mainstays, but a couple of them are definitely movies that I would like to go back here and there every once in a while. And I think even like the lower movies like Scrooge or Christmas Chronicles, I can see myself going back to every once in a couple years, just to, check it out again. But that comes to the end of my scoring. Let me get this back to Braylon so he can finish this off.
Alright, thank you, Andrew. And yeah, I think I will also give this movie a 7.5 out of 10. It's a fun Christmas movie. I love Santa Claus in this movie. But like I said, there was flaws. Like I said, I think the writing for the kids is just not that great. But I would say the positives definitely outweigh the flaws with this movie. But now, since this is done, now we can do which movies from least interesting to best for Deck the Decades. Now, I don't think there was one bad movie at all in this whole list, but definitely there were ones that were better than others. So at the bottom of the list, we have 1980s with Scrooge. So Scrooge, not a bad movie. It's the version of Christmas Carol I grew up with. I like Bill Murray in the movie. There's some good laughs out of it. But at the end of the day, it's just another Christmas Carol. We've seen it many, many times with other movies, so it's not really that unique. Like I said, I still like it, but it's definitely not my favorite on this list. Coming in next this one was actually pretty hard. I was flipping between this movie and Christmas Chronicles. It is Pocket Full of Miracles. So, I really like Pocket Full of Miracles. I like how unique of a movie it is. I like the characters and all that. But the only reason why I'm putting Chronicles above this one is because this movie is, I don't think I'm gonna rewatch it a whole lot because it is a pretty long movie and it's definitely, not like as fast-paced. It's definitely a much slower movie. But that being said, it's still a really fun movie, and I would also give this one a 7.5. And then coming in next is Christmas Chronicles. Just like I said in the review, it's a fun movie. I like Santa Claus in the movie. I think he's really cool. But like I said, the kids as the protagonists are kind of annoying and all that. And it's not a movie that's gonna blow your mind or anything, but it's still a cute movie, and wouldn't be upset if someone had this movie on. And then next up is The Year Without a Santa Claus. And like we said in the 70s one, well, more Ames because I had a ligma, but it's another Rankin Bass Christmas special, and personally, I would say it's one of my favorites. Like, I would put it up there with stuff like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and Frosty the Snowman, and honestly, I might even like it more than Santa Claus is Coming to Town. I love it. I love the music in this one with the elements and all that. It's a really cute Christmas special. And then coming in next is Jingle All the Way. So Jingle All the Way, this is one of my most nostalgic movies. This is my mother's favorite Christmas movie. Like I said in the review, it's really fun. Like, just seeing Arnold as a wimpy character versus his badass personas you usually see. And, just the fact that it's a time capsule of the time where we were going into stores fighting over toys and all that. It's a fun movie. Like I already said in the review, I'd give it like an 8 out of 10. And then coming out at number 1, it is Tokyo Godfathers. Like, I was pleasantly surprised with Tokyo Godfathers. I was really not expecting it to be as good as I thought it was. Like, I really enjoyed the story and the hidden biblical messages behind this. I really like Tokyo Godfathers, but that's gonna wrap up Deck the Decades this year. So, like I said in the announcement video a while back, I actually had this idea planned out like a year in advance. Like, when we did 25 Jolly Days for Christmas, I already had Deck the Decades in mind. So we already had that in mind, and we decided, you know what, let's do it now since it's Christmas time. So I'm really glad we did Deck the Decades. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. Honestly, though, if I'm going to be real with you, I kind of wish that we didn't do 25 Jolly Days last year, or at least kind of shrunk in it, because we really were just scraping for movies this year. Like, all the movies we watched this year were good, but most of them were like 7 out of 10s or 8 out of 10s. Like, if we could go back, like, I'd probably make 25 Jolly Days last year, like, more like a weekly thing like we did this year. But aside from that, it was really fun. I just want to say thank you to Andrew for doing it with me, and I had a lot of fun doing it. So, with that out of the way, this has been Braylon and Andrew with 2024's Deck the Decades, and I'm not going to announce anything for Christmas next year because I don't even know if I'm going to really be on YouTube much next year, but you know what, if we are, we might do something next year. We just have to come up with a good idea. But this has been Deck the Decades. Thank you guys for watching. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.